Hello friends, and welcome to yet another giant Korean transforming robot toy video. And this one is all about Hello Carbot Super Patron, specifically the two sets that make up Super Patron, and that is the set comprised of Patron S and Skid, and the set comprised of Dier EX and Leif. This video is going to be a long one. I apologize in advance. I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can, but no promises. So right off the bat, here we've got our four vehicles. Patron S is a school bus, which I'll get into it more later, but I really like how different this is. Skid is a police SUV. Skid is kind of a weird name for a police SUV, but whatever. Leif is an ambulance, and Leif is also kind of a weird name for an ambulance. Then again, I suppose calling a fire truck Dier is also a little strange. Yeah, they are Carbots, and they look good together, and let's just get the size comparisons out of the way now that we've got everyone together here. This is going to be awkward, but I'm going to do my best. Here's everyone with a more or less standard size deluxe. Here they are with a more or less older, typical sized Carbot, I guess, and that is Sky SWAT. Here they are with a more current Hello Carbot figure, that is Sky Gunner. And here they are with more of a classic size Tobot, that is Terrical. And finally, here they all are with the duck tank. Okay, well, I guess we'll just kind of start with one of these and go out from there. So, let's begin with Dier. Dier is a big red fire truck, vaguely similar model, it seems, to Sentinel Prime from the movies, which are probably better left untalked about. It's pretty cool. He's a big, chunky red stick of a fire truck. There are some nice details and color separations in there. These feel a little bit, just deco-wise, like an afterthought compared to some of the other Tobots and Carbots that I've had. That's not to say that they're bad, they're just not as impressive in terms of like the detailing and in particular, the painting and color stuff. Because like you can see, there is a lot of nice detail in here. It's like a little Hello Carbot logo right there that you can barely see, but it is there. Lots of other details throughout, and there is some separation here, but I just feel like maybe a little extra color in some of these big blank red areas would help to make it feel a little bit nicer. I don't know. You get a little bit of green up there that kind of goes along with the green for the headlights. I don't know why the headlights are green, but whatever. I do like how, though, the fire truck has this kind of like almost futuristic looking kind of angled arc V, not quite V shape, but you know, it's kind of like just this angled bumper section. It makes it feel a little bit more futuristic and a little bit less grounded in reality, which is fine because it turns into a giant robot. I do appreciate the fact that they painted the rims silver, though. That's nice. And up on the top, this metal is also painted silver, and this is nice, I will admit, because this you only ever see in the fire truck mode, so the fact that they took the time to paint that is pretty cool. Really, the detailing from the top is pretty nice. And around the back, you get some black painted back here, and you also get some details back here, but this is kind of overall sparse looking because it's mostly red with just these little black columns there. Then you also get some nice silver up on the top here. So yeah, the detailing on this it's okay. Like, the molding is nice. The paint, I feel like, could have been better, but this is like the least important thing that this toy does, so I'm not that hung up about it. As for the ladder, that just pegs in right at the top there, and it's got some nice detailing on it as well. It's very big, obvious screw holes on this side, but whatever. And it clips in here, so if you unclip it, which is a little bit tricky to do, there we go. If you unclip it, then you can kind of mess around with the ladder some more, and you've got the little bucket on the top there for someone to stand in. And so when it's plugged in, you can swivel it around, raise it up a fair ways, bring it forward more, bring it back more, so you have some options. This is pretty much the way that it sits, I think. Now, to transform this guy, I'm just going to pop this off, stand the fire truck up, and we're done. Now, let's move this back a little bit more, get a little bit more room here. Okay, so I'm going to fold in the wheels, just to get those out of the way. These panels here detach and flip down, and they loosely peg in into here. Like, they're not super solid, but they do hold. Around here you can see they kind of settle in around here. There are tabs, or posts, whatever, here, and was something down around here? Yeah, right here, where it pegs in, so when that comes up, that kind of clamps everything together. So bring that down. Now this flap back here is actually tabbed in on the sides of these black pieces, so you just want to pull those out a little bit, and you can see the tabs there. And just pulling them out a little bit will give it what it needs to pop out on its own. Flip it up, and these will tab in up here. Split what becomes the legs. And for the upper body, I'm going to split the front of the fire truck cab apart. And as we bring this down, the head is on a spring there. It's going to come down, or up rather, on its own. It doesn't really lock in down there, so it'll just pop up. Before we do the rotating on the arms and stuff, one of the things we want to do is flip these bits out, because you're going to need the clearance. You just want to line it up so that this is kind of like this angle here. You want it to be running parallel to the this bit here. So that'll give you the clearance you need. And then around the back here, you want to untab this section from here, like so. And untabbing it will allow you to pull out the arm and swing that down. And the reason you want to have these out of the way is because when you swing the arm down, this is kind of tucked by the fist. Like essentially this is keeping the fist in place. So if you don't move this, then the fist isn't going to be able to come out. Fold this around and rotate the forearm, and then bring down the arm. And this right here is the other reason why you want to have this out, because if you tuck it in like this, like it is in vehicle mode, then the arm can't go out very much. So you kind of want to have that out like that so that you can bring the arm out a little bit more and it can rest a little bit more comfortably neutral. And then we'll just do the same with this arm. So bring that out, flip that up, rotate that around, and bring this down. And there we've got Dier in his robot mode. Last thing you want to do is just bring this back, and this will plug into the port on the forearm wheels, and you can do it on either side. Either side has the ports. And that is Dier, and we'll look at him in more detail later. But next we want to look at Leif, and I need to adjust, because she is a lot smaller than Dier. And Leif's ambulance mode is pretty decent. There is some nice detailing here. I think it helps that because this is a smaller vehicle, you don't feel like you need quite as many paint apps. But I like how you've got this red line kind of going all the way around the base and around the wheel wells and around the fender. And then you have the green detailing up at the top here and on the sides and for the lights. Silver for the rims, which is always nice. And then in the front, you painted the headlights yellow, the grille is silver, the hood is red, the little vents are black, and then you've got the black windows going all the way around. It's a pretty decent looking ambulance. There are definitely some seams showing, like this red bit right here and these big hinges right by the side mirrors, but overall it looks pretty decent. Now to transform her, you want to pop off the entire top of the ambulance mode, just the whole thing. And now, first going to fold down the feet, pop these flaps out, and bring the legs down, and then these will come forward and tab into the sides of the feet here. And I am not a huge fan of this, but you know, that's how the toy is designed. And then split the legs, and that's pretty much that for the legs. And next, I'm going to flip up these bits here, and this is also interesting, this kind of silver corrugated metal that you don't see at all in the ambulance mode. Same deal with this, but it is there. Next, split these apart and bring them down. Those will become the shoulders. And then uncurl the arms. And there we basically have Leif in her robot mode. Again, I'm not crazy about that, but that's kind of the basics for her. Next, we want to work on the top of the ambulance. So first, we want to take the back section here and hinge that up, then split all of this, and that will split open. And it's pretty cool, as you split this apart, this red arrow thing actually pushes up. And these flip out, And then we're left with this weird kind of crossbow thing. And this, as I understand it, is meant to peg into Leif's back here, and it just kind of is there. And that's not great. That looks really goofy, and also it doesn't really hold super well, so it's like wiggling around, and it doesn't fall out. Like, it's not gonna fall out, but it's just like it spins way too easily. Not really a fan of how that was handled. You can use this little hinge section back here in post and peg it in that way and have it coming up a little bit more and make it more like actual wings, but that gets in the way of the head, and that doesn't hold in super well either. It actually kind of holds in worse. You can also, by angling this back so it gets out of the way, peg it in this way and have the wings going up, which I think looks a little bit better just because they appear to sit higher on the body, but it's still not great, and it still wiggles around pretty easily. And then you also get the asymmetry of this thing sticking off on one side. It is what it is. But anyway, for now, I'm just going to put Leif off to the side so we can talk about her in detail a little bit more later, because we still have a couple more to get through. So Skid is a police SUV, and I think out of all the vehicles, his probably looks the best, just in terms of deco and overall kind of cleanliness in terms of like panels and hinges and whatnot. You got this little bit down here, but other than that, there's nothing that like overtly stands out. The painting is nice. You've got the nice police logo and stripe on the side, silver rims, the blue and red for the lights up top, and the roof is done in white. Black windows all the way around, red taillights, which is great. And in the front, you've got some black detailing around the fender, silver in the grille, and then silver and yellow for the headlights, and then a little bit of silver up top for the vents and whatnot. Underneath, it also looks pretty clean. Like, there's not really an obvious robot under there. So yeah, Skid is actually pretty solid standalone vehicle mode. To transform him, you want to kind of pull this back, and the legs will just kind of naturally unfurl from the mass of the vehicle here. Split the legs, and then these bits here will rotate around and give him feet. And these hips and knees, but primarily the hips, these are way loose. I really need to tighten these. I should do that later. For the upper body, you want to kind of bring these bits out while at the same time rotate them down a little bit, because you need to get his arms kind of out of the way for the rest of the transformation. Split the top here, and these come down like so. Give him his shoulders, and then this whole section of car hood and lights here just rotates around, reveals his head, and gives him his chest. And yeah, I feel like it looks a little bit better if you leave these up a little bit, because this makes his shoulder line look really weird, but we'll get into that more when we get to the more detailed look at the robot mode. But there we have Skid as a robot, looking pretty decent overall, I have to say. Anyway, now we finally come to Patron, and Patron is a school bus, and it looks good, but there's a lot of panels and creases and clips and gaps and things all around this thing. Though unlike Dier, it doesn't feel like he's missing a ton of deco. Like, maybe there could be some color on the top, because really it's just yellow with like these little bits of black in the front. But around the sides and such, like, just having the windows painted in is more than enough in my mind. And then around the front, you've got the fender, grille, the headlights, side mirrors, these little vents on the sides of the hood. Of course, the windows in the front, the lights at the top. I also appreciate the asymmetry of the bus, because, you know, that's kind of how it needs to be. Where on this side, you've got the stop signs, which I think the implication is that they're supposed to pop out like typical school buses do these days, but I don't really see any molding to indicate that specifically. But I'm assuming these are meant to, you know, pop out for when the school bus is stopped. And then around this side, you don't have the stop signs, but you do have the actual doors to the bus. Nice of them to have that detail. It looks like there's stuff for potentially like engine access and air conditioning units or emergency exits or whatever along the top, but none of that is painted. And then along the bottom, you've got a tucked up robot just kind of hanging out. I dig Patron's vehicle mode. It's one of those things where it looks pretty good, gets the job done. It's a little sloppy in a few places, but I feel like for what it is and what it's trying to do, I don't know how they could have really made it any cleaner. But also, like, how often do you see a school bus that transforms? This is the only one I know of. There might be like one or two like obscure kind of knockoff company brand things that do something like that, but it's not something I regularly encounter. So I just think just on that alone, that makes this really interesting. So to transform Patron, want to take his little staff thing out of here, and it kinda sorta clips in place up here, kinda. So you want to disconnect that, and then it also frictions in place down here with these little tabs here. So just pull that up, pull that up, pull it up, pull it up. There we go. This will become his staff weapon thing. So just move that off to the side. Next, I'm going to untab these side panels here. These clip in over this red piece here. They tab into this tab here. And there is a tab here that goes into this port here. So this swings around, and this hole that was clipped around this bit will now clip around this bit. And that will hold that in place. Same deal on this side. Just untab and unclip everything, bring it around, and put that where it needs to go. Next, we're going to pop up the front of the roof. That just tabs in right there. This will swing around, and these will clip in right back here. Next, we're going to bring these sections out, so you can just pull here. It's not actually tabbed in anywhere, it just rests. It's this section here tabbing into here that really holds this part in place. So we can just fold those out a little bit. The reason I say you want to fold them out a little bit is because the way that this hinge works is you can see that it's on an angle, so as you hinge it forward, it'll start to push against this and make that gap bigger, and I don't want to, strain any plastic or anything like that. So just bring it out a little bit. Now we're going to stand things up, and these bits will just rotate forward to give them feet, and we can split the entire, what was the front of the school bus, just split that apart to give him his legs. Now we want to split the back of the school bus, and that will reveal his head. And in the process of moving this, you also want to untab this section from up here so that you can bring the arm out, and that will give you more than enough clearance to bring this the rest of the way around. But you don't want to peg it in just yet. So do that, bring that down, rotate the arm, and now you can rotate this around at the bicep, bring this section down, and that will bring down his fist. You want to fold this section. You'd think you fold it this way, but no, you actually fold it in, and this will settle right into that notch there. And that will complete his arm. Same deal here. I want to disconnect that and bring the arm out. Bring this up a bit. Finish bringing the shoulder down and rotate it. Bring down the fist. Bring all that out. Flip that in, and then bring that in and just have it settle into that notch there. And that is it for Patron, though I do need to give him his weapon. So yeah, here's his little magic staff thing, and from what I've seen on the box art, it basically has 3 positions based on what mode he's in. For his regular robot mode, it's like this. For his combination with Skid, it kind of sits in the middle, and then for the Super Patron combination, it's all the way down there. I don't know why. But anyway, let's peg that in, and there we go. Now let's move him back and bring in everyone else. And at long last, here we have the entire team in their individual robot modes, and I've got some conflicting thoughts on this. As just individual sets of 2 robots each, Patron and Skid, I feel, are by far the better looking pair. Dier and Leif, The issue that I have with these two, I think that their individual robot modes are interesting, and I'll get into that detail more in a bit, but their colors are too similar. They're almost identical. Like, Leif is actually kind of getting lost in Dier's details back here, because they are so similar. Whereas Patron and Skid, they're complementary colors. You've got blue and yellow. So they're not the same colors, but they complement each other, and they do share a few colors. Like, they have, you know, the same whites and the same reds. Leif and Dier, it's pretty much all white, red, green, yellow, like it's all the same. Anyhow, while we've got everyone here, let's do our size comparisons. Here's everybody, and move this back a little bit. Here is everybody with a kind of standard-ish Transformers Deluxe. So yeah, even the small ones, even Skid and Leif, are overall bigger than a Deluxe when they're in robot mode. And let me readjust things a tiny bit here. Okay, here's how they stack up with a more old school, earlier Carbot. And yeah, Dier and Patron are both significantly taller than SkySwat. Here they are with Skygunner, more recent Carbot, and definitely even taller than Skygunner. Here they are with the giant chunkster that is Tobot Terrical, and he's as tall as Dier. Not quite as tall as Patron, but heavier than either one of them, I think. And here they all are with the Duck Tank. Okay, let's do the individual thing again. And like before, let's start with Dier. So, Dier is a big boy made out of a fire truck. This seems to be where all of the deco went, which is fine. You've got way more color going on in the feet and shins, those silver for the tires in the back of the car, or truck rather, become some nice kind of knee details. Some really nice coloring going on in the midsection with the yellows and whites and reds, and that green, I feel like that shade of green and that shade of red just, they don't work together super well. But you do get a lot more detail in the shoulders. Like the insides of the shoulders are just full of detail on these weird kind of speaker looking things. But then like you also get the red caution stripes, backwards and forwards R's. I don't know what that means. It's not bad, and it's a nice shape. I like the big shoulders that kind of come down and around the arms. The only thing that kind of stinks is that it really does get in the way of the out movement of the arms here, so you kind of have to start using these bits. But as you can tell, they don't really hold up that well. He's got this like really kind of stout frame, especially the legs and torso, and then his arms are just kind of tiny and hanging a bit far away from his body. I feel like these really should be kind of more connected up around here than here. As for the head, it's fine. The green doesn't contrast as much as I would like, but it contrasts enough with the silver and the yellow that I think it's fine. If this was more red around here, I'd be more bothered by the green, but like having the yellow and the silver, framing it on at least two sides definitely helps to have it stand out. The shape of the helmet is a bit odd, and also I apparently have a little yellow paint splash there, so that's cool. That's fine. I don't really have them in this mod that often anyway. The head design is okay. It's got kind of this weird swept back, almost looks like a safety helmet for sparring, the way that it's shaped. But the details that are picked out in paint are nice. Like the silver stripe along the top and the yellow bits going kind of partially around like a crown. And yeah, it's alright. There is some decent molding in the legs as well, even on the insides. You can kind of see in there, and some molding on the insides of these panels too. Some nice detailing on the thighs, though you don't actually get any color there. I feel like this would have been nice to make silver because, you know, it kind of would match with the other silver corrugated metal stuff that they've got going on there. And again, some nice detailing in the torso. I like the color separation here. The forearms, I do kind of wish there was a little bit more color brought into the arms, like maybe if these were red or yellow up here, just these little badges to kind of add a little bit more to them. But overall, Dier is a decent robot. I would not have gotten this set for just Dier. That just wouldn't have happened. I'm glad I didn't get it just for him, because he's not my favorite. Anyway, getting rid of Dier and bringing back Leif. Leif is an interesting design. I think that she looks pretty cool with the little bow gun thing on her back this way, though it does have the arrow pointing out back here, like some kind of weird pointy tail. But I like the way that the wings look when they're looking like they're a little bit more centered around her body, because this way around, it's not great. I know I've said it before, but I'm not a fan of how these legs are handled. Because having these flaps forward is basically so that you can bend her knees. Because you cannot get that knee bend with the legs straight, with the flaps back around like this, because they just bang into this bit here. So you kind of have to, you know, either bring the leg forward to bend it, or just deal with keeping this out so that you can get a proper knee bend. I really wish that there was a way they could have done that differently. The arms, though, I don't mind. The kind of weird flare-outs on the shoulders are definitely a little strange, but I'm okay with it. Like with a lot of Carbots, she doesn't have a bicep swivel, so you can just kind of use this ball joint in the shoulder to approximate one. And her arms are a little stumpy. The elbows are a little far down. I feel like they'd be better served up here rather than down here. I dig the sort of medical symbol chest logo thing. That's pretty cool. And her head is very strange. There are just certain elements here that don't work as a whole. Individually, the different elements I think are fine, but like the way they come together just isn't doing it for me. She's got this weird kind of bike helmet thing going with these green stripes painted, which is fine. I like that color separation. And I like the black visor on the white. That stands out nicely. And this kind of one-eye monocle thing, that's weird, but I don't dislike it. I just kind of feel like that would have been better if it was actually a different color than white. Like maybe make it silver or like this gold or yellow color, something like that, to kind of bring some of these other colors in. The faceplate also, I feel like, maybe would have benefited from being something other than white. The detail that's really kind of throwing me off is the back of the head, this kind of weird flared out thing. It almost makes it feel like she's got some kind of like, either this is supposed to be long robot hair, which I don't think that's what it is, or it's like some kind of back of the neck covering that's draping down from underneath the helmet that she's wearing, and it's just kind of an odd shape. It's not terrible, it's definitely unique, but it's not something I'm super fond of. And like I said before, the issue that I have with her colors is that they're just too similar to Dier. So having the two of them together, they end up looking very, very blended together. Now we're going to transform her into her vest mode, I guess. So to do that, it's basically go back into the ambulance mode, just tuck up the arms, bring the shoulders up, and they will peg together up here. Bring these flaps back down, put the legs back together, untab all of this, and bring that back around, flip the feet back up, and bring all of this back up. Oh, actually, I did it wrong. You don't want to bring these flaps down yet. You want to keep them out. Then curl up the legs, because there are these little slots on the insides of the flaps that tab into these pegs on the sides of the thighs. So you want to transform her back into her ambulance mode, but you don't want to do anything with this. This stays in its crossbow-ish mode. From here, you want to fold the wheels in, and then you can kind of push up from the middle here, and that will disengage. You want to do the front first. So slide that up and hinge that out. There's a double hinge here, and same thing here, and you end up with these two halves of a car draped around a window frame. Bring Dier back in here. And I lied also with this thing. You just want to pop off the lights. That's the one thing that you do with this. And now this will go around Dier's head. There are these tabs kind of around his shoulders that this frame will tab over. So you want to bring it over with the front of the ambulance facing forward and bring it down over his head and peg it down. Then, when you bring this forward, there are these little kind of grooves in the front here that will go over these tabs sticking out of the front. So just line those up, press those in, and that will sit like that. And then lastly, back here, there are these grooves up here that will tab in here. So just kind of keep everything pressed in, bring that down, and that will clip into place. And it actually does hold pretty well, even on the front there. Next, there is this keyed hole on the back of Dier's head, and you want to line that up with the way that the this piece here is. So you can see that little kind of notch at the top there. So you want it going this way, and you just plug that into the top of his head. And because his head is kind of springy, you want to hang on, like you want to kind of grip the head while you push this in so that it doesn't push the head down. And lastly, just yank up on the head a little bit to pop it up a bit more so it's actually standing out from that frame and not sitting down as far. And we're just gonna plug his ladder back in. And on this arm, we're going to take the crossbow thingy and it'll just peg into his forearm. So just peg that in. Might need to bend that back to just give it a little more clearance. And that is Dier. I think this is EX. And yeah, we'll look at this more in a second. From there, we move on to Skid. And Skid's robot mode is fine. It's weird. It's like, this is kind of how they show him transformed, and I do not like this at all because it's kind of like his shoulders are just these thin little struts with like these things just kind of sticking off of them, and from what I can tell, these big chunks of car don't do anything. They're just there, kind of hanging off of his shoulders like some really weird decoration. So I'm not a fan of that, but I do think, as I showed, if you angle them up and then angle his arms in a little bit, it does help. It kind of makes his shoulders look a little bit more normally placed, because when they're down like this, his shoulders are way down here, way below his neckline, and that's just awkward. He's got the loose hips, which stinks. He's got loose knees. I need to fix all of that, but design-wise, pretty solid. I like how you get a mixture of white, blue, and black, little splash of orange and silver on the face. He is a little bit bland, though, from this angle in this mode in terms of his decoration, just because like the white for the shins and the thighs is very similar, so it kind of blends together. There's like a whole lot of blue just resting behind his torso that kind of blends in with the other blues that are going on. That part could have been better, but his transformation is interesting, and he ends up becoming a pretty decent little robot man. I also like how this bit, when it rotates around, gives him like an entirely different chest kind of profile. I think that's cool. But unlike Leif, he doesn't need to do any kind of weird leg mistransformation to be able to move his legs properly. So that's cool. And his head is also weird. I like it better than Leif's, but it is definitely weird. They kind of kept things a little simple here, where it's just solid blue with the orange visor and the silver for the face. The orange is a little strange in that that's the only place on this entire set that you see orange. I don't hate it, it's just, it feels a little out of place. But then orange and blue do work well together. The thing that's kind of weird about his design, though, is his face is like, he's like got a mouth plate, but his nose is hanging over his mouth plate. It's an awkward kind of look. I don't hate it. And, you know, he's a robot, so, you know, he doesn't technically need a mouth. So if he just doesn't have one and that's his nose, then fine, whatever. But it's just a little bit strange. But overall, I actually do think that Skid is the stronger of the, well, he's definitely the stronger of the two mini-bots in terms of his robot mode, just by virtue of the fact that he can, you know, move his legs. He also doesn't have this giant wing pack crossbow thing hanging off of him, which also helps. Now we're going to get Skid ready for his combination with Patron, and to do that, we basically just go back into car mode. So rotate this around, bring this up, and peg everything together. Bring the arms up and kind of curl them around at the same time. Let's get all of that lined up. Rotate his feet back around to make the back of the car. Peg everything together, and then bring this up, and that's an enjoyable transformation, I gotta say. Now we want to fold these wheels in, and that will kind of help to keep his legs from unfurling too much. I'm gonna push up from underneath like we did with Leif, but this time it doesn't matter what order you go in, it just kind of pops out. And hinge this around, hinge this around, and that is all we need to, well, no, that's not all we need to do. We also need to pop off the lights here, and then we can put this off to the side. Now we come to Patron. And I do like Patron. I think of all of them, Patron's individual robot mode is also the best. It's not necessarily the best with articulation and the individual colors. Like, there's more going on here, but like there could be a little bit better details here and there, I feel. But I really like how this came out. It's like you have a school bus, a yellow school bus, that actually turns into a pretty cool looking robot. It's a pretty decent silhouette. I was a little bit unsure at first with how all of this worked, how that lower body would work, because like when you look at it like this, it doesn't look quite right, but it's designed so that when you bring the legs out a bit, there's stuff in here that kind of fills in that gap and makes it look more like these are hip skirts coming down rather than like actually his pelvis. It makes it feel like his pelvis is a little bit higher, which definitely helps with the proportions. The feet are just a big box of chunk, and there's really not a whole lot going on down there deco-wise. It's just white at the top, and then you've got the different plastics. But they did add some silver for the knee pads, some silver for the sides of the hip skirts, and then you got some silver and red and I think gold in the chest there. The arms are also kind of a little bit bland. There's like this stripe here and some detailing in here. I feel like either one of those would have kind of helped to keep this from looking quite as bland. Maybe doing a little bit with this panel behind the fist. He's got these sort of guns sticking off his forearms, which is cool, but they're just the same yellow plastic as everything else. And then for the shoulders, he has the red and white with sort of not quite caution stripes, and the backwards and forwards are very similar to what Dier had. His staff weapon is kind of goofy looking, but at the same time I can appreciate the detailing. I like the sharpness with the kind of coppery gold for these lines here, but then the silver for these sort of metal feathers and the light blue for that gemstone thing. The weapon kind of ties in color-wise to the colors that stand out in his robot mode, like the Hello Carbot logo that's that coppery gold color and the light blue for the visor. So it all comes together pretty nicely. His head is fairly nondescript, but I like the colors here. The yellow with the red accents along the sides does look nice. The shape is pretty decent. It's kind of generic robot, but it's fine. The silver faceplate with the light blue visor, that's a really nice combination of colors. I kind of wish that the red line went further back to like the back of the head, but then the way it's sculpted, it does kind of stop there. So like maybe this line on the back of the head could have been red, or something with these little ear nubbins or something. I don't know. It's fine how it is, but it would have benefited, I think, from a little bit more detailing. And it just occurred to me, I actually did transform this guy wrong. Or not wrong, I missed a step with the transformation. That is, back here, you actually want to split this bit back here, and this comes out and actually tilts back a little bit. And that gives him wings of a sort. It doesn't really do too much. It affects his silhouette a tiny bit, but it's not a huge thing. I remembered, but it's not that important. Anyway, I'm going to bring in Skid, and Skid will just slot over him, much like Leif did with Dier. Want to, gonna need to pop these out, get them out of the way, just fully extend those. And now lining this up, there are these clips here that will clip around these bits in the back here. So just line that up and clip that in. And then around the front, there are these bits here that these bits in the front go around. And you want to make sure that the front of the car is pinched together as tight as you can when you clip it on, otherwise it's not going to hold in place very well. So put that in and just give it an extra squeeze, and that should keep it on there pretty tight. Now you don't need to do anything with Patron's head. It does not pop up like Dier's does. And then similar to Dier, you've got the keyed hole in the forehead and the little designy thing for the peg on the lights. You just line those up, peg them in, and there we have Patron S, I believe is what this one is. And, oh, yes, how could I forget? We need to adjust his wand. There we go. So there is Patron S. And let's bring back Dier EX. Oh, this is going to be messy and awkward. Here you can see the two of them in their powered up modes. They look pretty good together. The issue that I had with Leif being way too similar in color to Dier is a much smaller problem now that they're combined, because they're combined. but I'm still less a fan of Dier than I am of Patron. Patron S's combination is goofy, just like Dier EX's combination, but I still like the underlying robot mode a lot more, so I'm willing to deal with the goofy a bit more. And again, the blue and the yellow complement each other very nicely. I'm not going to do size comparisons in this mode because they don't actually gain any real height or bulk, it's just that they put on vests. So we'll save that for the full combination with Patron S and Dier EX, which we'll get into right now. For now, we're going to get Patron S off to the side, and we'll start with Dier again. So we're going to take the weapons off, we're going to pop off the lights, and just put that off to the side. Now, there are these buttons here on the backs of the shoulders, these gray bits. When you push down that button, it'll allow you to slide the arm off entirely. So you want to do that. Slide Dier's arms off. Bring these out, and just leave him there for now. I'm going to take these sections that were the arms, I'm going to slide these out, flip these up, these will become toes, open up these sections, rotate the arms around. Basically, we're going semi back to truck mode, with like bringing the arms back up, and then this will peg in there, and just kind of keep that together. Now this, you could keep like this, and then slide it out at the end. It doesn't really matter, but essentially that's how you want to do that. Same thing here, just rotate that, bring that out, slide that out, open that up, rotate that around, bring that up, and then peg that into place. And there we go. Now we want to take these sections here and clip them on the bottom of Dier's feet. You can kind of see how these pegs and clips line up. So just clip those in place, and those hold on pretty well on their own, but you actually want to solidify them a bit more. So I want to lift up this flap so that this flap, which we didn't move before, can come down, and this will peg over the sides of what is now the new foot. Then this entire section will hinge down, and this will peg in here and solidify things even further. And that gives him a very solid leg. You can do the same thing here. Just clip that in, and you can kind of see, even without like factoring in the solidity, it just redistributes the mass much more nicely so that you've got a bigger bulk down by the foot rather than awkwardly kind of up around the thighs. So pop that up, flip that around, and squish that in, and bring all that down, squish that in, and there we go. Now comes the part where I switch to standing up because this thing is getting really big. So we're going to move Dier off to the side for now, and bring in Patron S. I'm going to take his weapon, staff, whatever, slide that down. That goes off to the side. I'm going to leave Skid on as a vest. I'm going to leave the wings back and extended, open up the forearm, and fold in the fist, but just the fist, and fold that around, and then close the forearm back up. Same deal here. And now the reason you want to be careful with, like, not careful, but the reason you want to be mindful of this is because the fist actually pegs in really solidly to that piece there, so you can see it doesn't want to separate, so you just have to kind of hold this down while you flip the fist around. Now, you rotate the forearm around and bring it up, and that basically gives him like new kind of shoulder detailing. Now comes the interesting part. The lower body, you want to swing the feet back around like they were going into the vehicle mode, but then you want to rotate them at this hinge up here, like so. And you can also take the windscreen for the bus and just fold that in, just to clean up the arm a little bit. And now you split him down the middle, and these clips here will go into these sections, little grooves underneath the arms. And as you do that, you kind of want to bring this down. So just press that in, and it's funny, it doesn't feel like a solid connection, but like it actually Like, it takes some effort to disconnect. So that's pretty cool. You can do the same thing here. Bring that up, and that will just click right into place. And now we've got an upper body. Okay, so we've got our lower body, got everything situated. We want to take this, and this bit will just drop right into where Dier's head is. And it will clip into place. In order to disengage it, there are these buttons right underneath the armpit that you press. So bring that in and push that down, and that'll click into place. And then these struts will actually tuck up underneath the arms here to completely lock the upper and lower bodies together. That is not going anywhere. And here you can see the buttons that you press. They don't pop out until you drop Patron into position. So there we have that. Next, take the lights that were on Dier and plug those into the top of Patron's head. Unfortunately, the shape of the two pieces are very different. So this, you can see, is more of a square with a tab on the top, and this is more of a circle. So unfortunately, because of the way that the tabs and slots are shaped, you can't switch the positioning of the lights, which is a shame, because I kind of wanted to fan mode this by having this bit plugged back into the front there and plug this into the forehead, but it just doesn't work because the tabs don't line up right. And now for the, I guess you could call them weapons, accessories, whatever, take Patron's staff, and that plugs into the chunk that kind of qualifies as a hand. Take the ladder from Dier, straighten it out, and this will peg into the side of the arm. There's a port right here. This will peg into. And lastly, there is a similar port on this forearm. Now, I don't know the orientation of this, like how it's really supposed to be, but if you want this detail facing out, you just flip this little bit out, plug it into the forearm, and it works out pretty well because the little flap for the ambulance kind of rests right in front of the fist. And there, in all of his absurdly huge glory, is Hello Carbot Super Patron. And this thing is very large and quite heavy. This has been an absolute process. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty details and such, let's do some size comparisons. Here he is with standard-ish deluxes. You can see them way down there. Here he is with Sky SWAT and Sky Gunner. I'm just now realizing they both have Sky in their name. It's a weird coincidence. Here, let's readjust this. Let's shift him a bit more to the side. And there we go. There he is with Terrical. There he is with Tobot the Big Troll, who's not looking quite so big next to him. There he is with Hello Carbot Pentastorm, who was the largest Korean robot combiner that I had. Not anymore. And at long last, here he is with the Duck Tank. Okay, time to bring it in a little bit more, because dang. So yeah, Super Patron is very cool. It's weird how you don't really get any new detail with most of this. It's just kind of changed where it is. The only real new detail you get is the forearms, which is, it works, but it's odd. I like the mixture of colors here, how you've got the red with a little bit of yellow from Dier, but like that red, the yellow, the white, the silver, all of that is elements you get from the Patron half of things too. So it kind of looks like he's wearing red pants with yellow highlights and then a yellow shirt with red highlights. It's not a bad color mix, and I love how this set looks when it's completely put together. The proportions are definitely a little off. He's got very long legs, but the knees are like what would really be like halfway up his thigh. I feel like the knees should actually be like maybe down around here. He's got an extremely long torso, and then his arms, you can kind of argue, are like this whole chunk here, but that still makes his torso look really long. You do get some gappage between the bits where the new arms connect to the old arms, which is okay. I mean, you've got enough red going on here that visually it does still kind of read like one big thing. Though I do think it's cool how the lower body of Patron just like splits around to become these new arms. It's also cool how his old arms end up becoming these big shoulder spire things that look pretty neat. And you can adjust these, like you can angle them forward if you want, keep them pointed up. I end up having to angle them forward just so he'll fit on my shelf. The head is just Patron's head, or specifically the Patron S head with a set of green lights on the back, and I'm not a fan of that. I wish, if nothing else, that like maybe these lights could plug into the front here, but they can't because of the keying and the way things are lined up. It would have been nice if you could mix and match the lights, because, you know, having the Patron S lights on the front and the Dier EX lights on the top of the head is just, it's not good enough in terms of differentiating this head from any of the other heads. As for these fists, they are definitely blocky and awkward, but I think given what they're doing and how big this guy is and how involved everything else is, I'm okay with this. They are just basically big chunks with like a fist painted in, but it gets the point across. And this guy's so big. When you're just looking at him on a shelf, you don't really notice the fists being painted in chunks of plastic. The one thing that does kind of stink with the way this is done, though, is he doesn't have proper elbows. He has like the curling iron arms that only bend in, which is a shame. And you can't really, like, you don't have a thigh swivel, so you can't even rotate the arms around. They're just stuck like this and can go like forwards and backwards and in and out and bend there at the elbow, and that's pretty much it. I'm also not huge on the accessory placement on this guy. It just doesn't really impress me. It's just like slapped on. So one of the things that I started doing is taking the crossbow thingy and going around to the back here. There's a peg hole right back here on Leif that if you fold down her feet, you can access that peg. And from there, what I like to do is peg the crossbow thing from here into that hole, and it holds pretty well. In addition, the feet being down keeps this from wiggling too much. Then you can kind of angle this in just a little bit. And it's a simple thing, but I like doing it this way because when you're looking at Super Patron from the front, it adds a little bit more of a silhouette in the back to those wings, and so now it feels like he's got bigger wings that kind of go out more instead of just these thin little strips. As for this thing, I really wish there was a better place to put this. I've tried a few different places. You can peg it in back where Leif's bow thing is pegged, but this just kind of looks like a weird fire truck ladder tail. You can kind of have it coming up over his shoulder, but it's not tall enough to do anything other than just have this kind of angling up, so I don't really like doing that. I don't like pegging it into the forearm because it's not interesting. So what I've started doing is there is a peg hole, well, a screw hole really, underneath the wand, and the peg for the ladder actually does fit in there. So you can peg that in, pegged into the main fist, and then I just angled this up like it's some kind of hand guard or something like that. It's definitely not the most interesting looking weapon accessory thing, but it's something. And that, I do believe, is going to do it for Hello Carbot Super Patron. I am so tired. I wanted to get my hands on this set for a very long time, and I finally did, and I'm very glad I did. It's absolutely got some flaws, but I don't care. Anyway, that is going to do it for my thoughts on Hello Carbot Super Patron. Like I said, I am tired, so I'm going to get going, but thank you everybody for sticking with me for all of this, because this has been a journey. Whatever your thoughts on Super Patron, or Patron S, or Dier EX, or Patron, or Dier, or Skid, or Leif, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all, and remember, art is more than meets the eye. I need a drink of water. Drink of water.